The preceding episode showcased Bai Luochen's story, a former basketball superstar who passed away due to depression and was reborn in King Hong Academy as a teacher in the runic seal department. Although he initially hoped to achieve wealth and power quickly in this new world, his only duty was to chop wood. With no students, Bai Luochen resided in a shabby and dusty abode without any resources from the academy. However, he remained determined to teach Su Lu, a reincarnated immortal who became his disciple against the advice of others, the runic seal arts. Meanwhile, Yangrilo attempted to seize anything she could, but she was too feeble to move as he held the upper hand. Bai Luochen now had complete control over her body and could do with it as he pleased. Despite her efforts to aid her elder sister, Bai Luochen had had enough and used his powers to manipulate her body, resulting in a fatal wound in his chest. Although she couldn't see him, he was bewildered and grateful. However, the predator companion grew enraged and sought vengeance against her, but she was now powerless and unable to defend herself. Despite Bai Luochen's attempts to control the situation using his powers, he found himself unable to stop the impending danger. Just as he was about to harm her, Bai Luochen utilized his abilities to ensnare his opponent with a chain. Still unsure of who was aiding her, she asked if the predator companion could assist her in locating her sister's whereabouts. He informed her that her sister might have already perished after destroying her own Sea of Kai and fleeing. It was only when Bai Luochen revealed himself that both of them were taken aback. Bai Luochen inquired about her sister's location, and when the predator began to stutter, Bai Luochen swiftly ended his life without any qualms, causing him to explode. She was incensed by his actions, as she had been seeking his aid in locating her sister. Bai Luochen summoned a spirit bird and instructed it to find anything belonging to her sister, assuring her that it would locate her in no time. Her elder sibling was trapped deep in a hole, weary and depleted from her struggles, when she suddenly heard her sister's voice calling out to her. At last they had found her. With the aid of his magical powers, Bai Luochen managed to extract her from the hole. After being reunited, the sisters expressed their gratitude to Bai Luochen for his assistance. Bai Luochen produced a 5-element pill he had acquired from Zhang Im, a defeated opponent, to aid the younger sister in stopping her bleeding. Initially hesitant to accept such a valuable pill, she eventually relented and consumed it. Immediately, she felt a surge of spiritual energy coursing through her body, healing all of her injuries. They were both deeply grateful for his help. Bai Luochen inquired about the purpose of their visit, and the sisters exchanged a worried look before responding. Meanwhile, Su Lu completed the first page of the book that Bai Luochen had given her, causing her cultivation to advance. However, her concentration was interrupted by a commotion outside, which she initially assumed was the beast department, but turned out to be the vice instructor of the beast taming department, Chang Kan. Bai Luochen was still in the forest, trying to make sense of the sisters' revelation that they were searching for the ice monster, which both the sisters and the Void Equal sect were seeking. He pondered why both departments were after the monster, wondering if it had become a high-level demon. He responds that he wants it for his students so that it will aid in her training when they ask him if he is thinking of also capturing this monster. The situation in Bai Luochen's home was about to become hot. Her master has left for the time being, but if he has anything with him, he can return later. He didn't listen to what she had to say and suddenly told her to kneel. Yet she won't bow down to him. Why in the world did she even need to kneel down to him? He is furious about this. He summons his might and extends a massive hand at her. She made no movement at all. Her body was covered in bleeding. He continued attacking her repeatedly as he lost even more temper, but she was having none of his crap. She had a bold expression as she stood firmly in her place. He backed down and gave his pupil the command to kill her straight away because she is not terrified of him or his authority. Unexpectedly, Yin Hai begged his master if he may speak to her instead of killing her in an effort to persuade him to stop. Naturally, though, he declined. When Yin Hai approached her, he pleaded with her to put an end to all of the drama by bending down before him. She is in charge of what is about to happen since she refused to obey his foolish teacher and listen to him. And just as he was about to attack her, Blackie, the horse owned by Bai Luochen, charged at him with his head and instantly destroyed Inhai. This horse isn't just any horse, it's a spirit demon. Because of this, the Beast Department makes repeated attempts to steal it from the Bailuochen Department. Shane Kun used his strength to create a rope, which he then tossed at the horse to catch him. Shane Kun drew the horse towards him before hitting it with his charging fist and almost breaking his center spirit crystal. Sulu was in awe of what had just taken place in front of her. Because of what he did to her beloved Blackie, she broke down in tears. Evidently, they had a relationship, but until now, we were unaware of it. Anyway, she was yelling and screaming in response to what had occurred to Blackie. He will never get away with it, according to her. Sulu sprinted at him. She will apply everything she has learned up to this point to this attack, but Shane Kun has one quality she hasn't noticed. He always comes prepared. His head will be separated from his body if he didn't bring his special item this time. No matter what, he needs to get rid of her. He uses his magic to capture her. Sulu was rendered immobile. She was pushed towards him, and he grabbed her by the neck. Her demise seemed to be imminent. Despite his best efforts to help her, Blackie was unable to move. She also recalled the gift that Bailuochen gave her before he left for the jungle just before she fell asleep. She placed it on his arm in a hurry. This is her last action. Chang Kun's arm begins to disintegrate as the magic in the paper begins to work before he can even finish his thought. He was able to escape it before his body disintegrated completely. The monster depicted in the newspaper was incredibly powerful. The little chicken monster approaches Chang Kun from behind, knocks him to the ground, and then physically bursts before Chang Kun can realize what is happening. This kind of assault won't leave anyone alive. His unique item was obliterated. He had been kept alive only by it up until this point. He had been totally wrecked. When his pupil went to see how he was doing, Chang Kun instructed him to give him all of his supply of cultivation pills. He'll make it clear to her who she's messing with. With all of his might, he leaped at her. Is this the end for me? Sulu wondered in her mind. Bailuochen steps in to save her before he can attack her. While attempting to save Sulu and treat her wounds, he let a copy of himself handle Chang Kun. Bailuochen became quite irate. He had the audacity to come to his home when he was away and attack his student. Chang Kun's head was slammed on the ground by the clone. It was disturbing, to put it mildly, the way his face was. The clone was still not complete. He began repeatedly slapping Chang Kun in the face. Inhai yelled at him to stop, but Bailuochen ignored her and enclosed him in a mana barrier. Chang Kun's situation was not favorable. The clone shattering Chang Kun's face while simultaneously mending him was the most bizarre thing that happened. Felwa Watchen was currently just poking fun of him. Finally, after beating Chang Kun to a pulp, he gave him back to his pupil. Shan Khan begged Inhai for some cultivation pills once more, but instead of leaving right away, Chang Kun appeared to be suffering from brain damage since he continued to think he could defeat Bailuochen. And despite the fact that a pupil and her teacher had already beat him to death, he admitted to Inhai that, I didn't use my entire power. Sulu was certainly guilty for not safeguarding his home and Black the horse, but he told her to unwind and stop worrying about it. Chang Kun suddenly appeared with a brand new extraordinary eye that, in his opinion, is the greatest of the best. At level 8, even his griffin was. Nevertheless, as soon as Griffin approaches Bailuochen, the ice monster that he had previously captured before arriving here, all it does is just open its eyes. The griffin was forced to abandon all of its feathers and go off as quickly as it could by this alone. The two sisters from the bush arrived at last. Sulu, you are now in extremely capable hands, and Bailuochen can depart. Now is the time to expose him to something he wishes he had never seen before. Chang Kung flew as quickly as he could away from Bailuochen as he prepared to cast the curse of melting blood. Unfortunately for him, one of Bailuochen's clones approached and whacked him in the face, causing him to tumble and strike the ground. They are all students at the academy, and he attempted to calm Bailuochen down. But enough of his crap, Bailuochen thought. He had already given him an opportunity, but he ignored him. What was about to happen to him was caused by his ego. The only thing from Chan Kunitsu's garments that remained were the effects of Bai Luochen's attack. The sisters were both in awe of his might, and now it's Yin Hai's turn. But Bai Luochen didn't actually harm him. Instead, he simply frightened him and warned him not to talk about what had transpired there. He expressed gratitude to Bai Luochen for his pardon. Both of the sisters made the decision to leave after witnessing Bai Luochen's might since they didn't want to stay any longer. But if they had the time, Bai Luochen invited them to come over and play with his pupil. Suddenly, something in the sky caught Bai Luochen's attention, but he eliminated it without delay. It turns out that Chang Kun's uncle was the one spying on him the entire time, and this made him quite angry. He is not going to watch from a chair. At the upcoming exam, he gave one of his slaves instructions to deal with Bai Luochen's pupil. He delivered a present for Su Lu to Bai Luochen's residence. It is the ice monster, and thanks to its lightning power, it will be quite helpful to her as she moves through her development stage. Even in her previous existence, Su Li couldn't have imagined taming one of these formidable monsters, so she was awed by him. Nevertheless, there it is, the monster being handled by her master as if it were nothing, and on top of that, he wants to give it to her. She gives him a hug and tells him she appreciates the present, and she won't let him down. It is impossible for her to bring this spirit monster with her to the test, despite what he had said. To ensure that the spirit passes the exam without difficulty, he must control the level of its cultivation. So he made the same decision, but instead of attempting to lower the monster's cultivation, he managed to raise it even higher. She eventually broke out of her shell. Su Liu was awestruck by what she was currently witnessing. A female with stunning appearance emerges from it. She was called Elson, the Spirit Queen, also referred to as the Little Dream, and she will now stay with them. Elslin's beauty astounded Su Li. Her cuteness and loveliness were so striking that her past as a monster seemed unbelievable. Bai Luochen requested Elslin's help in guiding Su Lu's cultivation. He went to feed his horse but was preoccupied with something. He was correct in assuming that the Void Equal sect was not after the Little Dream, but instead, they sought a piece of jade that the Spirit Queen guarded. His system was unaware of what this jade piece was, and for the first time, it congratulated him on completing a new task. The job was to help his disciple advance in her cultivation level, and upon completion, he would receive some martial arts skills as a reward. However, Bai Luochen was irritated by the system's sudden task assignment. For the previous decade, all he had to do was chop wood, and the reward was not beneficial to him anyway. After pondering, Bai Luochen retired for the night. As he slept, the piece of jade began to act strangely. A girl emerged from the stone and gently placed her hand on his face, expressing her desire to see him again with love and passion. Who is this girl, and what connection does she have to Bai Luochen? If you would like to see part 3, please like and subscribe for additional content.